Welcome to today's Explainer. So, over the last year, I actually sat down and digested 52 different books. We're talking absolute heavyweights here. Books like Atomic Habits, The Psychology of Money, The Power of Now, Rich Dad Poor Dad, Think and Grow Rich, The 7 Habits of Highly Effective People, The Alchemists, the whole shebang. And you know what? A massive pattern started to emerge. It's like a giant puzzle, and the best lessons from psychology, finance, and lifestyle design all just snap together into this one cohesive framework for personal evolution. Today, we're going to build what I call the pyramid of success. We'll start right at the base with how your brain processes failure and work our way all the way up to the nitty-gritty mechanics of reclaiming your time. We've synthesized the absolute best takeaways here to show you how true wealth is actually built, layer by layer. All right, let's look at our agenda for today. This is basically a roadmap. First up, the Growth Mindset Foundation. Then, money is just psychology. Third, assets versus liabilities. And finally, time and relative income. Let's get into it. So, I want to kick things off with a pretty provocative question, just to, challenge your baseline assumptions a bit. Is doing well with money based on how smart you are or how you behave? Think about it. We've all seen those brilliant Ivy League educated executives go completely bankrupt, right? And on the flip side, we've seen people with average intelligence, like say a retired janitor, build absolutely incredible multi-million-dollar fortunes. No way that's just luck. Why does it happen? Well, because true wealth comes from your mental framing and intentional action. It's not sheer luck or raw intellect. It's fundamentally a behavioral science. So let's dig into the bedrock of that behavior. Starting with Section 1, the Growth Mindset Foundation. This is all about rewiring your brain for lifelong learning. Out of all those 52 books I went through, Dr. Carol Dweck's groundbreaking research on mindset really stood out. It's literally the starting point for any kind of transformation. Because look, before you can optimize your finances or build atomic habits, you have to look at how you perceive your own capacity to learn. Dweck's work completely upended traditional psychology. She proved that human qualities, they aren't carved in stone. You basically fall into one of two camps. You either think your talents are fixed traits you were just born with, or you believe they can actually be cultivated through hard work, solid strategies, and getting input from others. And here's the reality check. If you don't get this foundational piece right, no amount of tactical financial advice is going to save you. The contrast between these two mentalities dictates your entire life trajectory. Seriously. In a fixed mindset, every single situation feels like a terrifying test of your permanent intelligence. If you fail, well, you internalize that you are fundamentally a failure, and that creates this overwhelming urgency to constantly prove yourself, to hide your flaws. But in a growth mindset, the hand you're dealt is really just the starting line. Success becomes about stretching yourself and learning something new. Now, apply this to money. You absolutely cannot implement advanced financial strategies or make any major life changes for that matter if you're paralyzed by a fixed mindset that's terrified of looking stupid. If you're too scared to ask a quote-unquote stupid question about an index fund, or too proud to admit you have no clue how a mortgage actually works, that fixed mindset is literally costing you a fortune. And we have this utterly absurd societal tendency to devalue effort. We've been so deeply conditioned to think that if you have to work hard at something, understanding a financial concept, learning a new skill, then you must not be naturally gifted. People just love the illusion of effortless genius. If someone admits they had to study tirelessly to grasp a complex topic, people are kind of disappointed, like their intelligence is a fraud. But the growth mindset flips that on its head. Effort is actually the very thing that makes you smart. It's the engine that turns your baseline ability into true mastery. But as researcher Joe Dispenza points out, changing your internal beliefs is really only step one. When your conduct matches your intentions, when your actions are coherent with your thoughts, that's when you are ahead of your time. This was actually one of the most sobering realizations I had from reading all those books. Consuming massive amounts of information means absolutely nothing if your actions don't shift to match your new thoughts. It's the whole systems over motivation concept. We try to change our lives by just thinking differently, right? Sitting in a room visualizing success.
But if your daily physical actions don't actually change, reality stays exactly the same. To build true wealth, reading has to become doing. Your mindset has to translate into daily systems.
Moving right along to Section 2, Money is Just Psychology. Let's look at why financial success is really about behavior, not math.
Once you've got that growth mindset locked in, you got to apply it to your wallet. In the psychology of money, Morgan Housel teaches us a crucial lesson. Treating money like a physics equation is a massive trap. We're taught in school that finance is just math. You plug data into a formula, it spits out a spreadsheet, and boom, that spreadsheet tells you exactly what to do. But come on, in the real world, people do not make financial decisions on a spreadsheet. They make them at the dinner table, or in a super stressful meeting, or during a late-night panic. Personal history, ego, pride, envy, deep-seated fears, they are all driving the bus. A spreadsheet can't account for the sheer panic of a stock market crash, or the ego-driven need to buy a luxury car just to keep up with the Joneses. Our financial decisions are overwhelmingly driven by our own chaotic, emotional humanity.
And because of that, investors notoriously treat history like it's a perfect treasure map. We constantly look at past events and market cycles to predict exactly what's going to happen tomorrow. But finance isn't a hard science like physics. Physics is predictable because, well, electrons don't have feelings. An electron doesn't panic during a recession. It doesn't read the news, it doesn't get greedy, and it certainly doesn't try to outsmart other electrons. Human beings, though, we do all of that all the time. Human emotion, shifting cultures, a constantly evolving global economy, that's what dictates financial outcomes. So relying purely on history is a total fallacy because it completely ignores the human element. You've got to master your own psychological biases before you can ever hope to master the market.
Okay, to transition from all this abstract psychology to the actual practical mechanics of wealth, let's look at a timeless rule from the richest man in Babylon. I found the road to wealth when I decided that a part of all I earned was mine to keep. Paying yourself first. It's not just some quaint old-school budgeting tip. It is the ultimate behavioral hack. It forces you to build the habit of wealth retention before your emotions can trick you into spending it all. I mean, think about our default behavior. We pay everybody else first, right? The landlord, the credit card company, the grocery store, the streaming services, and by the end of the month, whatever's left over, which is usually nothing, goes to us. Flipping that script is the actual bridge between just thinking about money and genuinely building a fortune.
Which brings us to Section 3, Assets versus Liabilities. Let's get into the mechanical breakdown of building wealth. All right, so let's dive into an incredibly simple yet ridiculously misunderstood distinction. Robert Kiyosaki in Rich Dad, Poor Dad argues this is the single most important rule for wealth. An asset puts money in your pocket. A liability takes money out of your pocket. Sounds painfully obvious, right? But most people struggle financially their entire lives because they buy liabilities while genuinely believing they're buying assets. A classic example, a house. People take on these massive mortgages for oversized dream homes, totally locking themselves into decades of debt, property taxes, and maintenance fees. That house is taking money out of their pocket every single month. Meanwhile, a true asset, like a rental property, a dividend-paying index fund, a business, that generates positive cash flow. It actively puts money into your pocket, whether you're working or fast asleep.
So by keeping your expenses low and relentlessly channeling your cash into buying assets instead of liabilities, you lay down a rock-solid foundation. A lot of people are absolutely terrified to invest because they think it's risky. But Kiyosaki hits the nail on the head. Investing isn't what's risky. Financial ignorance is risky. When you don't know the difference between an asset and a liability, everyday life becomes a tightrope walk. Building wealth isn't about wild speculative stock picking or getting lucky at the casino. It's about a boring, highly effective, and deeply reliable system of acquiring assets. Once you build a strong base of assets and keep your liabilities contained, you basically eliminate the fear of going broke. And that frees you up to take advantage of life's genuine opportunities.
Finally, we reach Section 4, Time and Relative Income. How to reclaim your life by working smarter.
Look, having a mountain of money means absolutely nothing if you have zero time to actually enjoy it. So we have to challenge how we define wealth. Let's look at Tim Ferriss's concept of relative income. Imagine two workers, Chap A and Chap B. Both of them pull in $50,000 a year. If we only look at absolute income, society says they're totally equal, right? On paper, same wealth. But Chap A is grinding out 80 grueling hours a week for that 50K, while Chap B has optimized their systems and works just 10 hours a week to make the exact same amount. Who's actually wealthier here? Chap B for sure. They are vastly richer in the currency that truly matters, time. The ultimate goal isn't just to stack cash, it's to decouple your income from your time so you can buy back the freedom to actually live your life.
So how do you achieve this relative wealth and drastically cut your hours? You need what Ferriss calls a not-to-do list. What you aggressively refuse to do entirely determines what you can accomplish. You have to ruthlessly eliminate busy work. Apply the 80-20 rule. Focus intensely on the 20% of actions that drive 80% of your results. Everything else is just noise. Honestly, a lot of what we proudly call dedication to our jobs is often just laziness in disguise. We invent these trivial, low-stakes tasks, refreshing our inbox 50 times a day, organizing digital folders, sitting in pointless meetings, just to avoid doing the 1 or 2 difficult, high-leverage tasks that actually matter. We substitute active motion for real progress.
Which brings us to our final, provocative question for you today. Are you being productive or are you just being active? You could read 52 books a year, master the growth mindset, memorize the psychology of money, and build a flawless not-to-do list, but as we've seen, time and time again, knowledge without execution is entirely worthless. It's so easy to spin your wheels, fire off 100 emails, and feel completely exhausted by dinner time. But did you actually move the needle on your wealth today? Are you taking tangible steps to buy assets and reclaim your time? Take a hard, honest look at your daily routine. Stop just being active and start actually being productive. The choice is entirely yours. Thanks so much for joining me on this explainer, and I'll catch you in the next one.